The night she threw him out of the house. It was raining so hard the sky looked like it was crying for him. Daniel Cole stood barefoot on the marble steps of the mansion he had helped build, holding nothing but a small duffel bag and the last pieces of his dignity. Behind the tall glass doors, his wife was celebrating a $33 million business deal with another man's hand wrapped around her waist. And she had no idea. The broke husband she just humiliated owned something worth more than she could ever imagine. Before we go any further, I want to know something. Where are you watching this story from tonight? Drop your country or city in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel around the world. And if you enjoy intense, emotional stories about betrayal, power, and redemption, go ahead and subscribe. Not because I'm asking you to, but because you don't want to miss what happens when people underestimate the wrong person. Now let's begin. Daniel Cole was the kind of man people overlooked. He wore simple clothes, drove a modest car, rarely spoke in crowded rooms. When he entered a party, no heads turned. But when his wife, Vanessa Cole, walked into a room, everything stopped. Vanessa was brilliant, ambitious, breathtakingly confident. She had built a rising tech consulting firm from a small office to a multi-million-dollar empire in just 5 years. She was the face of magazine covers, the keynote speaker at global conferences, the self-made queen everyone admired. And Daniel, to the world, he was just her husband, the quiet one, the unemployed one, the man living off his wife's success. But what the world didn't know, and what Vanessa never bothered to ask, was that Daniel's silence was never weakness. It was patience. 3 years earlier, when Vanessa's company was on the verge of collapse, Daniel had quietly wired $2 million into her account through a private investment. Trust, anonymous, no strings attached. She thought it was a miracle. He let her believe that. When she needed connections, Daniel made a few calls, discreetly. Old family friends, investment groups, powerful names that didn't usually return calls. Vanessa thought it was her talent opening doors. Daniel never corrected her. He loved her, and love sometimes makes smart men do foolish things. The $33 million deal changed everything. It was the biggest contract her company had ever signed. A global infrastructure project backed by European investors. Overnight, Vanessa became untouchable. That night, the mansion was glowing with champagne lights and expensive laughter. Politicians, CEOs, influencers, everyone was there to toast her success. Daniel stood in the corner in a simple black suit, watching her, watching the way she laughed a little too loudly at Adrian Wolf's jokes. Adrian, and the man whose hand kept resting on the small of her back. Daniel noticed. Of course he did, but he said nothing until he saw Vanessa lean in and whisper something in Adrian's ear that made them both laugh in a way that wasn't business. That was the moment Daniel felt it. The shift, the distance, the betrayal that hadn't yet been spoken. Later that night, when the guests began to leave, Vanessa walked into their bedroom without looking at him. "Daniel," she said, removing her diamond earrings, "we need to talk." Her voice was cold, professional, like she was negotiating a contract. He sat on the edge of the bed. Okay, she didn't face him. I've changed. My life has changed. I need someone who matches where I'm going." Daniel swallowed slowly. "And I don't?" She finally turned around. Her eyes were different, harder. "You're comfortable being small," she said. "I'm not." The words cut deeper than she realized. "I've carried this marriage long enough," she continued. "I need a partner who understands power, growth, ambition." Daniel looked at her carefully. "Is that what Adrian understands?" he asked quietly. The silence answered him. She didn't even deny it. Instead, she walked to the closet and pulled out a folder. "Divorce papers. I've already spoken to my lawyer." Daniel stared at the documents in her hand, the same hands he used to hold during the late nights when they dreamed about their future. "When did this start?" he asked. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." She sighed, impatient. "Adrian and I are getting married." The words hit like thunder. "You're married," Daniel said softly. "Not for long." She placed the papers in front of him. "You'll receive a small settlement. It's more than fair, considering everything. Considering everything. Everything he sacrificed. Everything he protected. Everything she didn't know." An hour later, security escorted him out. Security in his own home. Vanessa stood at the top of the staircase as the guards carried his bag outside. "Change the locks," she told the house manager. The rain had started. Daniel turned back one last time. For a split second, he hoped she would hesitate. She didn't. The door closed. He stood there in the storm, breathing slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. There were 17 missed calls, all from the same person. His grandfather's estate attorney. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. For years, he had kept his family name separate from his marriage. He wanted Vanessa to love him for who he was, not what he owned. He never told her that the Cole family didn't just invest in companies. They owned infrastructure, shipping ports, energy grids, satellite networks, entire cities' worth of land, assets that stretched across continents, assets that were now legally his. The attorney had called earlier that evening to confirm the final transfer. It was official. Daniel Cole was now the majority owner of Cole Global Holdings, a private conglomerate valued at over $1 trillion. And tomorrow morning, the company Vanessa had just signed her $33 million deal with, it would quietly fall under his control. Daniel looked back at the mansion one last time, rain dripping from his hair, heart broken, but eyes clear. He dialed the attorney. "It's done?" he asked. "Yes, Mr. Cole," the attorney replied. "You now control the parent entity behind the European Infrastructure Consortium." Daniel inhaled slowly. "Good," he said. There was a long pause. "Would you like to attend tomorrow's executive meeting? They don't know about the leadership transition yet." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Yes," he said calmly. "Prepare the boardroom, because the woman who just threw him away was about to discover exactly who she married and who she betrayed, and tomorrow she would walk into a meeting expecting applause. Instead, she would meet the man she thought was small and realize she had just declared war on a trillion-dollar empire. The next morning, Vanessa woke up feeling unstoppable. The rain had stopped. Sunlight poured through the glass walls of the mansion. The headlines were already exploding across financial media. Vanessa Cole secures $33 million European infrastructure deal. Self-made queen expands global reach. Her phone buzzed nonstop with congratulations. Adrian lay beside her, scrolling through articles with a satisfied smirk. "You're officially untouchable," he said. "This deal puts you on another level." Vanessa smiled, leaning into him. Untouchable. That word felt powerful. What she didn't know was that power shifts quietly, and sometimes it shifts overnight. Across the city, Daniel stepped out of a black Rolls-Royce Phantom that no one had seen him drive before. The building in front of him wasn't marked with flashy logos. It didn't need to be. The steel and glass tower stood in silence, guarded and discreet. At the top floor of that tower sat the headquarters of Coal Global Holdings. For years, Daniel avoided this place. Today, he walked in like a man stepping back into his birthright. Executives in tailored suits straightened when they saw him. Some recognized his face from old family galas. Others only knew the name. But all of them knew what happened last night. The transition papers had been signed. The trillion-dollar empire had a new controlling owner, Daniel Cole. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, the executive boardroom doors opened. On the screen at the end of the long table was a live feed. The European Infrastructure Consortium, the same group behind Vanessa's $33 million contract. Today's agenda: finalization of leadership restructuring. Vanessa walked into their partner headquarters across town, confident and glowing. Adrian walked beside her. "Relax," he whispered. "Today is just formalities." "They already signed." Vanessa nodded. She wore white, symbolic, powerful, victorious. She didn't notice the subtle tension in the room, didn't notice the way a few executives avoided eye contact, didn't notice the empty chair at the head of the table, the chair reserved for the new majority stakeholder. Back at Coal Global Holdings, Daniel sat at the head of his own boardroom. Lawyers, advisors, senior directors, all waiting. The head counsel leaned toward him. "Once you confirm, the acquisition triggers immediately. Her contract becomes subject to your approval." Daniel's face was calm. "Trigger it!" With one quiet click, the world shifted. Inside Vanessa's meeting room, the screen flickered. The consortium's chairman cleared his throat. "Before we proceed," he said carefully, "there has been a leadership update within our parent organization." Vanessa frowned slightly. "Leadership update?" Adrian leaned forward. "What kind of update?" The chairman's voice tightened. "As of this morning, Coal Global Holdings has assumed controlling interest in our group." Vanessa blinked. She had heard of Coal Global. Everyone in international business had. But they were private, untouchable, invisible giants. "What does that have to do with our contract?" Adrian asked sharply. The chairman hesitated. "The new majority owner has requested direct oversight of all large-scale projects, including this one." Vanessa's jaw clenched. "Who is the new owner?" Silence. The doors at the back of the conference room opened, and Daniel walked in. For a moment, Vanessa thought she was hallucinating. He wasn't wearing the simple suits from their old life. He wasn't standing uncertainly in the corner. He looked different, composed, controlled, powerful in a way she had never seen. Behind him walked two senior legal advisors and the consortium's regional director. Adrian stood abruptly. "What is this?" he demanded. Daniel's eyes met Vanessa's. No anger, no shouting, just clarity. "Good morning," Daniel said evenly. Vanessa felt her pulse in her throat. "What are you doing here?" Daniel walked to the empty chair at the head of the table and sat down. "This meeting," he said calmly, "is now under my authority." The room went completely silent. Adrian laughed once, disbelieving. "You? Authority? Vanessa, what kind of joke is this?" But no one else was laughing. The chairman cleared his throat again. "Mr. Daniel Cole is now the majority shareholder of Cole Global Holdings, and by extension, our controlling entity." Vanessa's hands went cold. "That's impossible," she whispered. Daniel didn't break eye contact. "It's very possible." Adrian's voice rose. "We signed binding agreements." Daniel nodded slightly. "You signed conditional agreements." He slid a folder across the table. "Clause 47B. Majority owner retains final approval on all contracts exceeding $25 million. Vanessa flipped through the pages rapidly. Her signature was there. She had skimmed the details. She had trusted Adrian's confidence. Her breathing grew shallow. "You never told me," she said faintly. Daniel's voice was steady. "You never asked." Adrian's face darkened. "This is retaliation," he snapped. "You're doing this because she left you." Daniel finally looked at him. "No," he said quietly. "I'm doing this because I can." The weight of those words filled the room. Vanessa stood slowly. "You expect me to believe that all this time you owned—" "I didn't own it," Daniel interrupted softly. "Not until last night." Her mind raced. Last night, the same night she threw him out, the same night she told him he wasn't ambitious enough, the same night she called him small. Adrian slammed his hand on the table. "What do you want?" Daniel's eyes returned to Vanessa. What did he want? An apology? Revenge? Justice? He leaned back in the chair that symbolized more power than she had ever touched. "I want to review the structure of this deal," he said evenly. "There are concerns." Vanessa's voice cracked slightly. "This deal is my company's future." Daniel nodded. "I'm aware," the chairman added carefully. "Without majority approval, the project cannot proceed." Adrian stepped closer to Vanessa. "Don't let him intimidate you," he whispered. "He's bluffing." But Daniel wasn't bluffing. He pressed a button on the tablet in front of him. On the screen appeared financial projections, debt exposure, risk assessments, hidden liabilities tied to Adrian's investment firm. Vanessa stared at the numbers. They weren't clean. They weren't safe. "Adrian!" she breathed. Adrian's face hardened. "It's manageable risk." Daniel's voice was calm but sharp. "It's leveraged manipulation." Silence swallowed the room. Vanessa looked between the two men, one she had just left, one she had just chosen. And for the first time since the celebration last night, doubt crept in. Daniel closed the folder. "Effective immediately," he said. "This contract is under suspension, pending full investigation." Vanessa's world tilted. "You can't do that." "I already did." The chairman nodded solemnly. "It is within his authority." Adrian's composure cracked. "You think this is over?" He spat at Daniel. Daniel stood slowly. "Oh, it's just beginning." He turned toward the door, then paused. Without looking back, he said, "Vanessa, you said you needed someone who understands power." Now, his eyes met hers one last time. "Welcome to my world." And as he walked out, Vanessa realized something terrifying. The man she threw away wasn't chasing her success. He was controlling it. And if he decided to pull one more thread, everything she built could collapse. And Adrian, Adrian was already reaching for his phone because there were secrets Daniel hadn't uncovered yet. Secrets that would make this business war personal. Adrian didn't panic, not on the outside, but inside. Inside, something cold and dangerous began to rise, because Daniel had just done something no one had ever done before. He had interrupted Adrian Wolf's plan, and Adrian did not build empires by losing control. That afternoon, Vanessa sat alone in her office. The headlines had already shifted. Major consortium deal under review. Unexpected leadership change at Coal Global Holdings. Her $33 million victory was turning into a public question mark. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Board members demanding answers. Investors asking for reassurance. Employees whispering in hallways. She stared at the wall, replaying Daniel's words. Welcome to my world. How long had he known? How long had he been capable of that level of power? Why had he never told her? Then a darker thought crept in. What else had he never told her? Across town, Daniel sat in his grandfather's old office at Coal Global. The room smelled like leather and history. Portraits of past generations lined the walls. Men and women who had quietly shaped industries without ever appearing on magazine covers. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Power isn't loud, Daniel. The loud ones are usually borrowing it. The chief financial officer stepped into the room. Mr. Cole, she said carefully, our internal audit team uncovered something concerning. Daniel looked up. Adrian Wolf's firm has been leveraging offshore shells to inflate asset strength. He used projected infrastructure subsidies that were never fully approved. Daniel's jaw tightened. And Vanessa's company? They're exposed. If the consortium collapses, her firm carries partial liability. Daniel leaned back slowly. He could end this right now. He could approve the deal, let the hidden risks explode later, and watch Adrian fall on his own greed. But Vanessa would fall with him. And despite everything, despite the humiliation, despite the divorce papers, he still didn't want to destroy her. He just wanted her to see. That evening, Vanessa confronted Adrian. We need to talk, she said sharply as she entered his penthouse. He poured 2 glasses of wine, unfazed. This is temporary pressure, he said. Daniel's emotional. He's reacting. Stop, she snapped. Don't reduce this to emotions. She placed the financial reports on the table. These projections, these liabilities. Why didn't I see this? Adrian's expression shifted slightly. You didn't need to. That's why you have me. Her stomach turned. I built my company on transparency, and you built it small, he replied coldly. I'm building it big. Silence. You used me, she whispered. Adrian stepped closer. I amplified you. Vanessa stepped back. Did you ever intend to make this deal clean? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said something worse. In business, clean is a luxury. That was the moment Vanessa felt the ground shift beneath her. Not because of Daniel, but because of Adrian. Meanwhile, Daniel made a decision. He called for a private meeting, not with the board, not with investors, with Vanessa. She almost didn't go, but curiosity and something deeper pulled her there. They met in a neutral location, a private conference suite overlooking the city skyline. No press, no lawyers, no third parties, just them. For the first time since the divorce papers, they were alone. Vanessa entered first. Daniel followed shortly after. There was no anger in his face, no bitterness, just quiet strength. "You look different," she said softly. "I am different," he replied. They sat across from each other. The silence felt heavier than any argument. "Why didn't you tell me?" she finally asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Because I wanted you to love me without the $1 trillion shadow." Her eyes flickered. "I did love you." He held her gaze. "Did you?" The question hurt more than any accusation. Vanessa looked away. "I needed someone who matched my ambition." Daniel nodded slowly. "You mistook silence for weakness." She swallowed. "Why suspend the deal?" "Because Adrian is using you." She flinched. "He's leveraging inflated capital structures. If this project fails, your company takes the fall." Vanessa stared at him. "Why are you protecting me?" Daniel paused. "Because I don't hate you." That hit harder than anger ever could. She leaned forward. "Then approve it. We'll restructure. We'll adjust." Daniel's voice remained calm. "I will not attach my name to manipulation." Her frustration returned. "So this is it? You hold all the power now?" He shook his head. "I don't want power over you, Vanessa." "Then what do you want?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I want you to see who you chose." The door opened suddenly. Adrian walked in. He wasn't invited. But men like Adrian never waited for permission. "Well," he said slowly, clapping once, "this is intimate." Vanessa stood. "What are you doing here?" Adrian ignored her and faced Daniel. "You think suspending that contract hurts me?" Daniel didn't respond. Adrian smiled thinly. "I anticipated resistance." Daniel's eyes sharpened. "What does that mean?" Adrian stepped closer. "I structured secondary financing through independent entities. If this deal collapses, Vanessa's firm will default first." Vanessa's blood ran cold. "You said it was contained risk." "It is," Adrian replied smoothly. "Contained to whoever is weakest." Silence fell. Daniel understood immediately. Adrian had built a trap. If Daniel rejected the deal publicly, Vanessa's company would take the market hit. Stock collapse. Credit freeze. Investor panic. If Daniel approved it, Adrian profits. If he blocked it, Vanessa bleeds. Adrian smiled at Daniel. "You see, $1 trillion man, this isn't about money." He leaned closer. "It's about leverage." Vanessa looked between them, horror dawning. Daniel stood slowly. "Cancel the secondary financing," he said calmly. Adrian laughed. "You don't control those." Daniel's voice lowered. "I control the banks underwriting them." That wiped the smile off Adrian's face. Because Daniel was right. Coal Global didn't just own infrastructure, it owned stakes in international banking networks. Adrian's backup funding depended on institutions Daniel now influenced. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare." Daniel stepped forward. "You underestimated me." For the first time, Adrian felt it. A crack in his control. Vanessa felt it too. The realization that the man she called small was operating at a level she never understood. But Daniel wasn't finished. He looked at Vanessa. "If I pull this trigger, Adrian collapses." Adrian's jaw tightened. "But so does your public image." Vanessa's breath caught. Daniel continued softly. "Are you willing to lose everything for him?" The room went silent. Adrian watched her carefully. Vanessa's mind raced. Reputation, legacy, trust, love, ambition, and ego. Daniel reached into his jacket and placed a single document on the table. A forensic report. Proof of Adrian's offshore manipulations. Enough to end him permanently. Vanessa looked at it, then at Adrian, then at Daniel. And in that moment, she realized she had married the wrong man. But it might already be too late, because Adrian wasn't the type to lose quietly. And as he slowly reached into his pocket for his phone, he made a decision. If he was going down, he wouldn't go alone. Adrian didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out something more dangerous. Information. He placed his phone on the table and tapped the screen once. Within seconds, multiple news alerts began lighting up across financial platforms. Vanessa's phone buzzed. Daniel's phone buzzed. Breaking anonymous source questions. Legitimacy of Vanessa Cole's European deal. Insider allegations suggest internal manipulation. Vanessa's blood ran cold. Adrian leaned back slowly. "You see," he said calmly, "I prepared for betrayal." "You leaked this?" Vanessa whispered. "I protected myself." Daniel's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped into something quieter. "You forged internal emails." Adrian smiled faintly. Perception is reality. The articles were spreading fast. Screenshots, fabricated memos, claims that Vanessa knowingly approved inflated projections. Her company's stock, already fragile, began to dip in real time. Investors panicked first. They asked questions later. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. "You said we were partners." Adrian's face hardened. "We were, until you hesitated." Daniel stepped forward. "You just destroyed your last negotiation leverage." Adrian laughed. "No, I escalated it." He stood. "If I fall, her reputation falls with me. You can crush my financing, freeze my accounts, ruin my firm." He looked directly at Daniel. "But you won't save her image in time." Silence filled the room, because he was right about one thing. Reputation moves at the speed of rumor. Truth moves slower. And in the corporate world, seconds can cost billions. Daniel walked to the window overlooking the city. For a brief moment, the weight of everything pressed against him. He could walk away. Let Vanessa face the consequences of her choices. Let Adrian burn in his own fire. But leadership isn't about what you can destroy. It's about what you choose to protect. He turned around. "Adrian," he said calmly, "you think I just inherited money." Adrian smirked. "I think you inherited luck." Daniel shook his head slowly. "I inherited systems." He pulled out his phone and made one call. "Release the audit package. Full transparency. Timestamp everything. Route it directly to regulatory authorities and the financial press." Vanessa looked at him, stunned. "You're going public?" "Yes." Adrian's smile began to fade. Daniel continued speaking into the phone. "Also freeze all underwriting institutions tied to Wolf Capital. Effective immediately." Adrian stepped forward sharply. "You can't freeze all of them." "I don't need all," Daniel replied. "Just enough." Within minutes, notifications began shifting. Regulatory authorities open inquiry into Wolf Capital. Emergency audit documents reveal offshore shell manipulation. The narrative was flipping fast. Adrian grabbed his phone, frantically dialing. No answer. Another call. Voicemail. His funding lines were being suspended in real time. Daniel walked back toward him. "You built leverage," he said quietly. "I built infrastructure." Adrian's composure cracked for the first time. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. Daniel's eyes were steady. "No, I'm correcting one." Security entered the building moments later. Not Daniels. Regulatory investigators. Someone had moved quickly, very quickly. Adrian looked at Vanessa. Say something. But she couldn't, because she finally saw him clearly. The shortcuts, the manipulation, the hunger without ethics. And she saw Daniel too, not as the quiet husband she dismissed, but as the calm force she never understood. Adrian was escorted out without another word. And just like that, the loud man fell. The room was quiet again. Vanessa stood there, shaken. "My company," she whispered. Daniel checked his phone one more time. "Your stock will dip for 4 to 8 hours," he said calmly. "Then recover." She stared at him. "You planned this." "I prepared for it." Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't dramatic tears. They were heavy, real. "I threw you out," she said softly. "I called you small." Daniel didn't respond immediately. "You chose noise over foundation," he said finally. Silence lingered between them. "What happens now?" she asked. Daniel looked at her, not with revenge, not with superiority, just truth. "Now you rebuild," she swallowed. "With you?" He paused. That question carried everything. Love, ego, history. "Hurt!" "I protected your company," he said gently. "Not our marriage." That hurt more than anything Adrian had done. Vanessa stepped closer. "I was wrong." "Yes," Daniel said quietly. "But I was also insecure. I felt like I was outrunning you. I didn't know you were walking a different path entirely." Daniel studied her face. For the first time, she looked less like a queen and more like a woman who made a terrible mistake. "Power isn't about being louder," he said. "It's about being stable." She nodded slowly. "I understand that now." Outside, the financial storm was calming. Inside, something else was settling. Daniel walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I have a board meeting." A small, almost ironic smile touched his face. She exhaled shakily. "Daniel!" He stopped, but didn't turn around. "I loved you," she said. He closed his eyes briefly. "I know." "And I let ambition blind me." "Yes." She took a breath. "Is there any chance?" He finally turned. "Redemption is possible," he said softly. "But trust takes longer than headlines." Then he left. 3 months later, Vanessa's company had stabilized. Stronger compliance, cleaner partnerships, no shortcuts. She worked differently now, quieter, smarter. Meanwhile, Daniel rarely appeared in public. He didn't need to. The trillion-dollar empire moved without noise. But one evening, as Vanessa prepared to leave her office, she received a message. "Dinner, 7 p.m., same place we first dreamed big." No signature. She smiled faintly, because some foundations are harder to erase than pride. If there's one lesson in all this, it's simple. Never mistake silence for weakness, never trade loyalty for glitter, and never underestimate the person who builds quietly while others perform loudly. Because sometimes the one you call small owns the world you're standing on.